Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to the nonfiction of the month for February. Should I have filmed and put this up sooner? Probably. So, for February, I read Tears We Cannot Stop, A Sermon to White America by Michael Eric Dyson. This is an anti-racism book formatted kind of like a sermon published in 2017. I picked this for February, obviously, because February is Black History Month, and also in general, I need to get reading a lot more anti-racism books. I am a foster parent, and 2 out of our first 3 placements have been Black, so this is really something I need to be on top of. And this one I actually found in a secondhand bookstore. Pretty much all of the bookish places in our area have been really good since last summer to put out and sort of highlight the Black written books. The library, these bookstores, I think a little bit of like the Barnes & Noble and Books A Million places have all done it too. And it's very nice. It makes it a lot easier to find these kind of things. And this one in particular I was interested in because it is formatted as a sermon. I am a former pastor's kid, not in that belief system anymore, but you don't really need to be for this book. I believe this book would caption me or label me an agreeable agnostic, I think was the terminology. And the format of a sermon is not strictly serious necessarily. It's not satire. Obviously, we're talking like racism and police brutality and a bunch of other very serious topics, but there is a kind of tongue-in-cheek nature to the format in that things like the hymns, the section that's all about the hymns, mentions like Beyonce and Tupac. Like, it's still a lot of pop culture references. There's still a lot of not exactly lighthearted moments, but at least worded very affably in tone, I guess you could say, and it works really well. Now, for me, I'm actually trying to formulate almost like a kind of roadmap for anyone else that wants to get started reading anti-racism books of like where to begin, and this one's actually a pretty good beginner book. It was published in 2017, shortly after, I believe it was written shortly after the Trump presidency began. I cannot remember exactly. And there's definitely a lot of things that I don't want to say necessarily that I already knew, but at least that had already been brought to my attention. If you were at all online summer of 2020 or have been reading other anti-racism books, a lot of these ideas will not necessarily be new to you, but the book formats them as if they're new. There's a lot of talking directly to the reader, calling the reader beloved, which I believe is more of a Black gospel church thing. At least I don't recall my father ever using that from the pulpit. But because of that kind of, now this may surprise you, or this will be shocking, and then going on to say something that I've already read in 2 other anti-racism books, I didn't have quite the punch that I think the author was going for. But if you are just beginning and you want a familiar setup, if you are of that belief system, then it's a great pick. The talking directly to the reader, I couldn't decide whether or not I really liked it or didn't care for it. It totally depended on the moment. But again, I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of if I was brand new to reading these things, if I hadn't been having all those conversations online with people last summer, if I hadn't already been reading anti-racism books, trying to put myself in the shoes of the people I will inevitably end up recommending this to, how would they think about it? And in that case, that's probably helpful, at least to a certain extent. Although there's something to be said of if you're talking directly to the reader and telling them what they're feeling, you're more likely to put them off. Like telling them, oh, you're shocked by this or you're angered by this, might put them off a little bit, which might also have been what he was going for. The actual content of the book is very wide and very broad and very trying to cover a lot of things, which is again why I call it kind of a beginner anti-racism books, because it covers a very broad variety of topics, but only a little bit each, because I think the entire book is like 200 pages or just over that. Yeah, like 230. So it's not a very deep dive into any one of the things that it's talking about, but it is a very emotional take on anti-racism. It's a very pleading take. And there were some moments that had really good food for thought. The concept of whiteness as being a fake construct against darker skinned people, but while being fake, still real enough to affect daily life. And that was a really intriguing idea. And the concept of rebuking whiteness, or the idea that whiteness is some inherent thing and not a man-made construct, was also really intriguing. There are a lot of discussions on things within the Black community, which I'm going to assume maybe if you're like in the community would be meaningful for you. Discussions on things like colorism, and it does talk about Black on Black crime and the differences, and why it's not a valid argument against police brutality to talk about Black on Black crime, and all those kind of things. So I really appreciated that a lot. I don't want to say it's a quick read or an easy read. I'm going to call it a simple read. It's a simple read compared to some other anti-racism books that have like heavy footnotes and heavy facts in specific years and dates, which is why, again, I would definitely say this is the book to suggest to like those older relatives that have low-key talked about learning more about this, but you want to ease them into it because you're not sure they'll read the other books if you suggest them. I've already thought about some relatives in particular I could recommend this to. No idea if they'll actually read them, though. For my personal day-to-day life in reference to my foster kids, there wasn't as much that I could be like, yes, I'm going to use X or change X of what I do in my daily life for them. At least nothing that like would directly affect them. Obviously, the rebuking whiteness as a concept would indirectly affect the relationship with them, I believe. But again, great first pick if you're getting into the entire concept of anti-racism books. Very relaxed, simple writing style, definitely personable, and a wide variety of topics. In the future, I think I want to get more into the nitty-gritty of specific topics within the world of anti-racism. I would really love to find a anti-racism book specifically for foster care. I can find a little bit on adoption at the moment, but most of it's like transracial adoption memoirs, and I would love more of a broader view on things. So if you know anything to that extent, please let me know. I would be highly interested in that. Moving forward, I don't have a lot of thoughts for what my next nonfiction is going to be, and I should probably figure that out. The idea of looking at whatever the national months are, like how February is, National Black History Month, finding the one of those months for March, because most months will have several national month of whatever attached to it. So maybe finding one of those and reading more. Is March Autism Awareness? Or is that April? That might be April. I'll figure it out. I'll get something. I do like the idea of continuing this. And one serious nonfiction book a month. It's about all I can do right now. I would love to step it up, but unfortunately, I finally found myself at a place where I feel less stressed, and it required taking a giant step back from BookTube and changing my daily habits, and I'm not quite to the point where I can step back up my serious academic food for thought reading yet. Maybe summer. Who knows? I really hope I don't put so many obligations on my summertime. Regardless, thank you so much for watching. If you have any other anti-racism recommendations, please tell me down in the comments below. I would love to hear about them. I am always broadening my list for things to read in the future. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.